Hello everyone and welcome to Careers in Conversation, the Green Futures event. My name is Matt Jones, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm one of the careers advisors at York St John. I'll also be your host and moderator for today during this event. This event is part of Green Week 2022. It's running throughout this week from the 21st to the 25th and has been created in collaboration with York St John University and the Students' Union. We've had a really jam-packed week so far, full of events, and there's still more to come. So please do check out the York St John events calendar online for the most up-to-date list of events and activities. As you'll know, this panel event is being streamed live into Launchpad, the career space at our York campus, and it's also being recorded and will be available for viewing after today's event. So do share with your peers or watch again at your own leisure. So for today's event then, on day 4 of Green Week, we are joined and very lucky to be joined by 4 esteemed green professionals. We've got 3 with us now. Hopefully we'll have a 4th to join us soon that either studied at York St John or work really closely with us. We've got Casey Woodward, who's the CEO at tech startup AgriSound. We've got Melanie Greggain, who is the wildlife researcher for Wildspace Productions and Netflix, and also works as a freelance filmmaker for Friends of the Earth. Hopefully we'll be joined by Misha Gibbons, who is an ecologist with Practical Ecology. And finally, we've got Luke Bennett, who is a border control inspector for the Animal and Plant Health Agency within the UK government. Hello and welcome everybody.
Hi.
Hey guys.
Hello.
So we'll be welcoming questions throughout the event, so please do submit your questions. We've set up an online form which can be accessed using bit.ly/YSJ Green Futures. So please do ask any questions that you've got during the talk, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. We'll also give you some time at the end as well. So if you think of some towards the end of the session and you'd prefer to ask them verbally, you can do so as well. So we'll get set up and on with the event then. So it'd be great if we can start off with a bit of an introduction from the panelists themselves to tell us a little bit about who they are and what their role entails. And Melanie's the first on our screen, so if I can start with you, please.
Yes. Well, my name's Melanie Greggain and I work for a production company called Wildspace Productions based in Bristol, and we make natural history content exclusively for Netflix. We've just released, the company is only a couple of years old, so we've just released our first documentary a couple of weeks ago called Surviving Paradise, and we've got our next one out, I think it's the 13th of April, which is Our Great National Parks, which is presented and narrated by Barack Obama. And I also work as a freelance filmmaker and communications consultant for Friends of the Earth on the Cumbrian coal mine campaign.
Fantastic, thanks Melanie. I actually watched Surviving Paradise last night, everyone. It's a great watch, please do tune in. If I can pass over to Luke next, if that's all right. You're next on my screen.
No worries. Hello, I'm Luke. I work for the Animal and Plant Health Agency, which is sort of tied to DEFRA. I know the building itself isn't actually too far from the University of York. What do? I can't go into too much detail as I've been informed, but I essentially stop pests and diseases from coming into this country on fruits, plants, and other sort of different commodities from all around the world, really. So it's quite fascinating.
Fantastic, thanks so much. Thank you for sharing. And yes, DEFRA is not only around the corner from us in York as well, which is it's great to know. And finally, Casey, if I can finish with you.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Casey. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called AgriSound. We're also based in York. And what we've done is we've developed some simple low-cost technologies which listens out to the sounds of insects and captures that information to help farmers and gardeners to better understand kind of how much pollinators they have in their space and how they can take actions to improve local pollinator counts. So we set the company up a couple of years ago, and it's been a whirlwind ever since. And yeah, super delighted to be here with you today and share some insights from our journey.
Oh, thank you for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have all of you here with us today. As I mentioned right at the start, just before I hit record, there's a real mix here of York St John alumni and friends of York St John. So for those who did study with us, could I ask what you studied and when you graduated?
I studied communications in media. Well, it was communications and in media and performance back then. So we did a big mix of PR journalism and also performance arts as well. I graduated in 2003.
Luke?
I did environmental geography degree, which was, I loved it. I graduated in November 2021 and was fortunate enough to graduate with a master's in environmental science and management from the University of York in February. So yeah.
And that actually leaves a nice segue into Casey. So you are only now non-graduate of York St John, but did attend the University of York. Could you tell us a little bit about what course you studied?
Yeah, so I did a degree in biology. So it's quite mixed, looking at kind of biomedical stuff and ecology stuff, and then graduated there in 2012, and then went on to do a PhD in medicine at a medical school, Holyoke Medical School, and then realised that academia wasn't for me, and then quickly moved out into industry, which, touch wood, seems to be working out all right so far.
It's really interesting actually to hear that each of you, obviously very different in terms of the roles that you currently have and the companies that you work for and the kind of work that you do, but also lots of diversity in terms of your degree subject as well, because I know that attendees today to the session aren't just coming from geography and aren't just coming from environmental science, but also come from other degree areas as well. So it's really interesting and inspiring to hear how you've made that transition. And I want to sort of start with Melanie first, because obviously in terms of your degree in terms of media, you mentioned a bit of sort of performance as well. I want to sort of ask where it's sort of your interest in sort of the green sector and wildlife came from, because obviously there's not it's not a natural progression to go from necessarily media and performance to the area. So where did that interest get sparked?
Well, so the environment and the planet have basically been a passion of mine for years. And I was working for some different PR agencies and working for some companies that I really didn't agree with their values, which I didn't like. And then I tried to get more involved in conservation charities and doing their PR or writing press releases for different charities, but just because it was a huge passion of mine, you know, I thought, well, I can use those skills that I've got and transfer them into something that I'm really passionate about and that I really want to focus on. And then somebody actually asked me to get involved in a documentary a few years ago, which didn't actually happen because of their budget, but it then propelled me to do more with wildlife conservation, and then I went on to do a master's in wildlife documentary production as well, which was quite heavily biology and animal behaviour as well. So I've kind of done a bit of everything to get there.
Yeah, and then develop that specialism through master's study as well. It's interesting you mentioned there about values, because values are something that we talk a lot about in careers, in terms of using sort of knowledge of your values to help you to make decisions about your career and the future, and to acknowledge what your values are and see where they compare with the kind of work that you're interested in, but also looking at your anti-values, so maybe the opposites of those that maybe you would find draining or less motivating at work. So it's interesting that you mentioned there about values. Casey, if I can come to you next, in terms of your sort of degree background and your subsequent sort of journey into academia and work, obviously it's from the start it's been related to sort of more around the environment and for example, insects you mentioned in terms of plants in the environment. So in terms of your values, was that something that you would agree with in terms of that your values were there from the start, and that's how you've sort of started the journey that you're on now, or not so?
Yeah, sort of. I think I always wanted to solve a big problem. So I think, I started thinking that, it was going to be sensitive with healthcare, which is why I did a PhD in medicine. And then I realized that actually, food production is probably one of the defining problem, food production and climate change, obviously the defining problems of our generation, I think. And I think for me, it was kind of, why don't we try and do something in that space and make a difference? So I started working in after I finished my PhD, I started working in a biotech company, a startup that was really interesting, but it was there was lots of great things. I took away loads of learnings, but it was kind of, I realized that there were certain elements of that company that I really, really liked. And I liked kind of being hands-on and getting stuck in and being out and talking to customers and all this sorts of stuff. And there's elements I didn't quite like. So I realized I wasn't as keen on being involved in the lab, and I liked being more customer focused. And then, transitioned in, start working with, a bit like Luke, start working with government and some of the agricultural innovation work that happens in and around York, of which there's lots of. And then from there, I kind of saw lots of other startups doing stuff, and I thought, I reckon I could do this as well. And that was kind of where when I took the plunge and set my own company up. And I just say, I think to anyone, if you're passionate and you've got group of people around you that are interested, then it's definitely worth looking at.
Would you say that you have always been entrepreneurial or had an interest in sort of running your own business, or was it really from the perspective of identifying a problem and wanting to solve that and feeling that you were best placed to start that movement?
Yeah, I think I've always had an interest in making money, and so that's been one of the things that I've always kind of looked at, is kind of, how can I take these skills, solve a problem, create some impact, but also get paid for doing it as well. And so I wouldn't say I've always been entrepreneurial, but certainly what I found is that actually, in order for me to have the biggest impact, this is the path for me where I think I can create the most impact and solve a particular challenge that resonates well with me. But I would say that, I think there's a lot of people who kind of overhype entrepreneurship, and I think it's great for some people, but not for everyone. I think it's just it's always good to be careful of the pros and cons for that journey. You
make a really good point there, and I think that's something that we're able to support with as well. So for students listening, whether you've for example are entrepreneurial, or you are thinking about your whether or not you'd like to start your own business, we have got support available from the university as well, so we can start those conversations. And as Casey mentioned there, it might be that the draw isn't necessarily enterprise entrepreneurship, but wanting to solve a problem or make money, and that is the one way of doing that. Luke, if I can come to you now in terms of your main drivers, what would the drivers be? Obviously, we've heard in terms of solving a problem and values and things. What do you identify were your drivers to sort of propel you into the work that you're doing at the moment?
I've always just loved the environment, so anything environmental related, and I've always been there, be it sort of entomology, sort of, I guess in some sense virology, just love sort of the environment, trying to make it a better place for everyone and everything. And I think with my current fascination for insects and again entomology, I knew doing something within the environment was something for me. I'm looking now to become a seasonal bee inspector, so that would entail going around to different bee farms and sort of inspecting the bees to see if there's any pests and diseases on the bees. And I always remember being a young student walking past the DEFRA building, past Layerthorpe, and saying to my mates, I'm going to work there one day. And now, thankfully, I've sort of got my foot in the door. I can now, hopefully progressively move back to York, which is, I think, something I'd like to do, and see if, for argument's sake, I could then start to get some students into DEFRA for a few tours, just to see what we do and sort of keep the ties there. So that would be fantastic.
Well, we'd love to have you back in the city, to be honest. But it's interesting there, the point that you made, and that leads me really nice onto my next question in terms of when you mentioned there, you're walking down Layerthorpe with your mates and you pointed to the DEFRA building and said that I'm going to work there one day. It links to that sort of analogy. And my question was to all the panelists, if when you think and reflect on your career, was your career planned, or was it a case of right place and right time? Because when we talk to students about career paths, on one hand, as a careers advisor, we would talk about making sort of strategic decisions about career, planning ahead for the future, trying to make that particular thing happen, as you've, similar to what you said there, Luke, in terms of I'm going to go for that and that's where I want to be. In another from another perspective, it can also be right place, right time, meeting people that was serendipitous and by chance and things like that. So in terms of you, start with yourself, Luke. Obviously you mentioned there you pointed DEFRA. I'm going to work there one day. To get where you are now, would you feel there's been quite a lot of planning to get where you are, or would you say that it was some elements of chance to your career decisions as well?
I think it was completely chance. As soon as I finished my masters, I came home and was sort of working in a bar for a little bit, and at the same time was applying for multiple jobs within the environment sector, and it was probably about upwards of 50, 60, and they were just all rejections as I didn't have the relevant experience in what I was going for. And luckily, a family friend messaged me and then got in contact with me, and without me realizing had spoken to someone in the APHA. It was like, this is Luke, introduced who I was, and I had an interview, and the best interview of my life, lasted 20 minutes. Fantastic. Bit short of an interview, but yeah, never mind. And was fortunate enough to get the job the next day. So I would love to say it was planned, but it wasn't. You know, for myself, you have to put yourself out there. You have to show to sort of employers that you're willing to go that extra step to learn. But again, I was turned away about at least 60 times because I didn't have the experience or knowledge. And it, there isn't a set path. I will go anywhere where I think I'll enjoy. I want to do different things, and yeah, I love what I do at the moment.
Over to you, Melanie. In terms of your career path so far, would you like I say, similar to question to you, would you say that it was mostly planned, or would you say there was an element of chance within the path that you've taken?
From university, I mean, I didn't plan working in what I'm doing now, and I think a lot of the time as well, at such a young age, I think a lot of people might know what they want to do at one point, but it might change, it happens. And I think where I am now, I created, I did think about it, and I created a lot of those chances. And I think that a lot of the film work and a lot of the PR work, for certain charities, I did for free off my own back, and I created events and lots of different things that I was doing for free because I didn't have the experience for the people to take me on. I made that happen for myself. It wasn't planned from when I graduated because I was doing something else. I'm also I'm a songwriter as well. Write different songs for different artists, and I'm a creative and I tell stories, and that helps with the filmmaking that I'm doing because I'm doing research and we're creating storyboards for documentaries. So yeah, I've got a lot of experience from a lot of different angles, and the people that are doing my job have got lots of different backgrounds. There's a lot of scientists, geography students, ecology, wildlife. People come from all different angles. So yeah.
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned about sort of like storytelling and narrative, and how that, for example, if that's applicable to one area of your life or one area of you, then you can sort of tap into that for other things as well. So in terms of, for example, songwriting, and comparing that with documentary filmmaking or research, for example, you might think, if you just put the two things together, you might think, oh, they're not related. But as you mentioned there, they're heavily related, because the skills that you would use are instrumental in both. And I suppose for students now starting out and thinking about the future, maybe they've got a really clear idea or not about what they want to do, and both is absolutely fine. Thinking about what you know about yourself in one area, so something that obviously yourself, Melanie, of you do sort of singing, songwriting as part of the work that you do, but for a student's point of view, it might be that it's something, a hobby, for example, that they do. Again, you can tap into those skills and hobbies that you might not think are related, and then use them to propel you forward. So really, really pleased that you mentioned that as well. Casey, if I can come to you finally on this, planned or serendipitous, which one would you say? Or none, or both?
Bit of a mix. I mean, I suppose I completely echo what Melanie said, to be honest. I think it's kind of putting yourself in the right place to be successful is kind of the key thing. And so, I mean, I didn't really kind of know where I wanted to go. I knew I tried a few things out, tried the research piece out, and it wasn't for me. Tried a few other bits out, and they weren't for me. But I think what the common thing that's always held me in good stead is kind of not being afraid to put myself out there, and trying to build a bit of a network, even though it's really hard when you're kind of just leaving university. But how I got my first job was through kind of a mutual contact. So someone who put me in touch with someone else, and that was great. And then kind of not being afraid to put yourself out of your comfort zone and apply for those different jobs you might not have all the right skills for, but you've got to word it in a way. And I think although obviously now it's slightly different for me, I think I would definitely echo the whole piece around storytelling as being kind of absolutely instrumental for so many different things. I mean, obviously as a founder, we live and breathe by telling the story of our businesses, whether that's for investment or to meet customers or to talk to shareholders or recruit staff. And I think that it's such an important skill, and I think it's definitely something to think about when you are talking to employers, is the fact that actually these softer skills, sometimes we think that they're less important than the harder skills we've got. So I can do GIS, or I can do this, or I can do that. But actually being a really good communicator actually should be something that we're really shouting about and being able to evidence from the get-go. Because I think certainly when we recruit people, we really look at kind of much more about how they fit in with our team, rather than can they do this one particular thing or operate this one particular widget that no one else can. Because actually it's easy to teach those sorts of skills, but it's hard to find people that actually meet our need and culture. And I think that's one of the things I definitely say. My journey's not been planned, but I think it's trying to pick up some of these skills and learn on the way that have helped me to get to where we are now, which has been really useful.
I think you make such an interesting point there about sort of hard and soft skills, and the sort of the importance of the softer skills in terms of the interpersonal skills and other skills that and storytelling, for example, skills that you immediately might not think are valued or looked for from an organisation, but actually they're some of the key parts of that, because those are things that can't necessarily be taught, or are less easy to be taught as well. And I think in terms from a careers perspective, I'm thinking about my own career as well. I think there's been elements of plannedness, if that's a word, and elements of serendipity and being in the right place at the right time. And both are fine and both are great, as we've heard from our speakers today. And however you approach it, I think it's when you think about your future and as a student and wants to move forward with your career, or thinking about how you can put yourself in the best possible position moving forward, drawing on both of those. So, for example, on one hand, taking the more planned approach, if, for example, you are going to apply for a job at AgriSound, as we mentioned with Casey, for example, having a look at the type of roles that are available, having a look at the job description, the person specification. And if there are areas that you'd like to develop in the meantime during your time at York St John, get involved with some activities that might help you to do that, whether that's part of a society, for example, a green society or environmental society. That could be getting some work experience, doing an internship, doing some volunteering. It can be done in lots of different ways. And as Casey mentioned about growing the network and not really knowing many people in the industry, you can do that quite easily through LinkedIn and paying interest to other people. But also being open to those opportunities when those chance opportunities and those serendipitous moments present themselves. Be in a good position to grasp them with both hands and use them to help you to move forward as well. So my next question, and it's quite a short question, and I'd like to start with Melanie first. What does a typical day look like for you?
A typical day. Well, I will be given so I'm working on a new production at the moment. We're in pre-production and we're not filming until May. We start filming in May. We've got a two-year contract. So I can't talk about what it is because I've signed an NDA, but basically I will research different locations around the world, different wildlife, different behaviors, write it all up into a document and come up with top storylines. We always speak to scientists as well, so I'll normally have a Zoom meeting with a scientist somewhere around the world, just so that everything is backed up by science and everything is very factual. But yeah, that's generally what I do. With the Friends of the Earth stuff, that's more freelance. That's I've been making films for them for their social media, so I'll just go out to the site up in Cumbria. So I've been back and forth to Cumbria quite often, and make short films for them and put them together, edit them and send them off to them for their social media. So yeah, it's a big mix.
Really big mix, yeah, really varied. Luke, can I come to you next? What's a typical day look like for you?
So each day to day can vary, but on average, what I do, I get up in the morning. I'd have a look on our system to see what exams we've got coming in, and whereabouts they are. Sometimes they're at the Port Felix Stowe. I don't think any of you have ever been there. Fair enough. I sort of also within like the Suffolk, Essex, and Norfolk region, and where these places are. I essentially go to those places with an idea in mind of what I may find sort of pest and disease wise. Go there, sort of speak to the client, let them know I'm there, let them know what I'm doing. 9 times out of 10, they'll know what I'm looking for. If there's anything that I find out of the ordinary on a plant or a vegetable or a fruit, or in some really rare cases, animals, I can send off samples to the Ferrer laboratories, which are also just outside of York in Sand Hutton, and wait for a lab diagnosis. And as soon as that comes back, I can then action that certain commodity regarding the pest or disease. So yeah, that's just fantastic. So
that's great insight. And in terms of the impact of your work, what in terms of the role that you have in terms of that, if that sort of arm of the role that you do wasn't there or wasn't as efficient, what would the repercussions of that be for the environment?
So some of the pests and diseases that can come in, I don't know if I can say some have come in before, and they can cause billions and billions amounts of damage within the agricultural sector, the biodiverse and ecological sector, as in, for argument's sake, a new species was to come in of insect, for argument's sake, it could really change the sort of food chain of one specific habitat or ecosphere, which would be detrimental to other species that may then rely on sort of the broader picture, but these one species can come in and destroy everything. I know for a fact we're quite hot on the Asian hornet at the moment. That's a big problem for us. There's a bacterium called Xylella fastidiosa, which is another massive problem. As soon as we get that, that's a really sad day as soon as that comes in. So that's a really big problem. But yeah, any other pest disease we've just got to keep an eye out for and essentially stop it from coming in. So,
and that's why we're so lucky to have people like you, Luke, as well, and teams that, like the team that you work in, to help keep the environment safe and to try to avoid those risks and threats as much as possible. And finally, Casey, what's a typical day look like for you?
I mean, first I was going to say thanks for Luke almost for giving us a shout out for our work on Asian hornets. We do a lot. We do supply APJ with kit on that, so very good on that front. But yeah, no, I mean, my day is kind of really varied. So tomorrow, for example, I'm out with James Dyson's farms, installing some of our kit there to monitor pollinators in their strawberry production site. So for those of you who've never been there, it's a really cool site. It's definitely worth a Google. It's like, imagine a spaceship that was growing strawberries in it. It's kind of like super space age, really, really cool. So yeah, so sometimes I'm doing deployments. A lot of the time, most days I will check in with the team anyway. So check and see kind of where we are in terms of new projects, R&D work, what's happening in terms of manufacturing, which is obviously a bit spicy at the moment with different, global supply chain challenges. But yeah, a lot of my time probably is taken up with talking to shareholders. So that's kind of one of the downsides of being a early stage venture capital backed businesses, that we do have a lot of reporting that we have to do. But yeah, I'll say a lot of the time it's kind of trying to be customer focused. What I try to do is spend a lot of time grounding ourselves with listening to customers and hearing what their feedback is on the products, or kind of what features do they want, or kind of how they intend to use it, what sort of stuff they're trying to do with it. So that's where I try to spend most of the time and not get too much bogged down with, can you do this, or can you pay this check, or can you do this or do that, someone moaning. So yeah, but no, it's really, really good. I definitely say, if you want variety, setting your thing up, whether that's as a freelancer, an independent consultant, or as a as a startup, is super, super varied.
I can't get the image of a spaceship growing strawberries out of my head. That's a Netflix documentary. Right there. Right there.
I know. Honestly, it's the doors are like incredible. It sounds quite sad when I say that, but it is really good.
So one thing I want to ask about, obviously, because in terms of our audience today, they're predominantly students at York St John, and obviously may have some time remaining with us. Whether obviously if they're in their first year, they've got a lot of time with us. Obviously in their final year, it's slightly less time. But thinking about how they can maximize their time with us at York St John in terms of exploring different activities and getting involved with things to help them to develop their knowledge and interest in this area. So one of the things that I wanted to ask about was basically, did you get involved in any extracurricular activities that supported your interests or pathway into your career? And if I can start with Melanie first.
Yeah, like I said, I created a lot of opportunities for myself because I wanted to get involved in this kind of work. I set up an online blog, social media for something called Conservocean, and that was basically just to create awareness of all the plastic in the ocean and things around that. But also the thing that got me the job with Friends of the Earth was they wanted to open a coal mine in Cumbria, and that's where I'm from. And that was something that I'm really passionate about, not opening. And I created a lot of events and awareness around what it was going to do to the planet. And I was writing a lot of press releases, but I was doing that off my own back, obviously not getting paid for it. And then Friends of the Earth came in and they created this role for me, and basically said, all of this work that you're doing, we'll pay you to do it, and we'll help you out. So that's given us a bigger platform for it. So yeah, I mean, I think that whatever it is generally that you're studying, whatever you're passionate in, you can make that happen. You can make what you want to work in, you can make that happen. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're studying, if you want to make that happen, you can create there's lots of different paths that you can get into that, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And it's interesting there when you mentioned about obviously starting a blog because of one of the examples you gave there about sort of coming from Cumbria and you're passionate about sort of not opening a coal mine in Cumbria. And doing a lot of that stuff off your own back, blogging, for example, and producing content because you're passionate about it. But then obviously that led on to another opportunity, a paid opportunity with Friends of the Earth. So again, it's thinking about, from a student perspective, thinking about how you, almost from the employer's perspective, past performance is a really good indicator of future impact as well. And for example, if organisations can see what you've been doing off your own back, and that's something that they're looking for, a really good opportunity to do that. So thank you so much for sharing that. Really good top tip there. Casey, if we can come to you next. Any extracurriculars that helped you with your career?
No, I mean, one of the things I really regret actually was not getting more involved when I was at university. So I worked part-time throughout my studies, and that was great. Obviously, it gave me some transferable skills. But I think one of the great advantages of actually being at university, you do have time to do stuff and create stuff, whether or not that's kind of just taking a punt at setting up a little online business or kind of getting involved and doing some sort of social media stuff or volunteering or being involved with passion projects. So no, I was a bit sad and didn't do that, but I wish I had. So I encourage everyone to definitely go and do it.
Listen to Casey. And finally, Luke. So whether it's your time with us at York St John or University of York, any extracurriculars that you did with us out there?
The sad thing is, unfortunately, not. I know a few of my colleagues and myself on the course. We did try to set up an environmental society. There were rumours, and then COVID happened. So as you can imagine, everything went out the window. And I did my masters also during COVID. So as far as sort of extracurriculum societies go, no. I did join the swimming society just to sort of keep my mental health and physical health in check. But that's one thing I do really regret, was actually not sort of starting that environment society going. I thought that would, no, even if it was just helping the groundskeepers at York St John, just keep sort of the plants in check. See, even for argument's sake, insects, mini beasts, I've forgotten what they're called now. Surveys, where you go and survey, see what you find, just to get an idea of what's going on. But yeah, it is a shame I didn't, and I wish I did. And I can only sort of suggest to you guys, please do go. And if there isn't an environmental society set up, please set one up. I think you'd all really benefit from it. It would be fantastic. It'd be brilliant.
I'm so pleased you mentioned that, and use the momentum that Luke and his friends started back during just before the pandemic. And for example, obviously Green Week is running collaboration between the university and the Students' Union. And if you can get a group of peers together, you can set up your own society, and I think that's a really good opportunity for you to do that. And also, for example, do something, be active, contribute, as Melanie mentioned, in terms of is it blog posts, is it protests, is it what are you doing to do that, and to help the cause that you're supporting. And obviously you can talk about that and maybe use that to help propel you forward. It's really interesting, Luke, there you mentioned mini beasts. I've just been taken back to year 5 at my local pond with a net, trying to see, I'm shaking trees and things, and you've just taken me right back to that moment. So so thank you so much for that. Yeah, so in terms of I was really enjoying that. I'm captivated by that. So obviously some of you mentioned there in terms of you did get involved with activities, and Luke there you mentioned around swimming society as well. And I think it's important to recognise that your extracurriculars don't always have to be related to the environment, and we're not sort of 2D people that have only got one interest. We can have broad interest as well, and you mentioned there the benefits of that, Luke, through mental health as well. So do get involved in any society or any group that you wish. And one thing that I'd also mention, thinking back to your sort of time at university, but also in terms of your careers moving forward, if you could give one piece of advice to students who want to get involved in the green sector, Casey, if I can come to you first, what would that be?
Just get involved. Just get involved. I mean, I think I know we don't there's not always paid internships, and if there's a company you're particularly interested in, just get in touch and see how you can get involved. And more often than not, I think certainly we would do this is, if there's not something there but we like the person, we'll make something, we'll find something. Don't just sit back and wait for an opportunity to magically appear. Be proactive and ask them for opportunities, or can we do something together, be collaborative. And I think more often than not, if it's a company that you would want to work for, then they would be more, then they should be more than happy to do that if you're showing an interest and happy to help.
Get involved. Great piece of advice. Absolutely. Luke, I can come to you next. Bit of advice.
My advice would be sort of very close to Casey's, would be to sort of try to do an internship if you can. I know one of my modules in third year, I should have gone on an internship, but there was two options to it. I could either got an internship or done a research report on something else environmental to do with green spaces in the York region. And I keep shooting myself in the foot because I really wish I took that internship and sort of said to a company, hi, I'm Luke, I'm willing to learn. This is a part of a module. I would like to gain some experience within the sort of work sector. Will you take me on? So again, with what Casey says, get on it, get out there. And if you can, get some experience in.
I think
do an internship if you can. Yeah.
You make a really good point there, Luke, as well. And I think I do have Suzanne in the room, and I'll be in hot water if I didn't mention this. That Suzanne's team is the Student Opportunities team, and they work tirelessly to try and create opportunities for internships, for volunteering, other work experience that is available on Launchpad Online. So do have a look, do get involved, check out what's there. You can also contact jobs & the _ ops at YSJU.ac.uk, or volunteer at YSJU.ac.uk for more information as well if you want to speak to somebody about opportunities. But yeah, get involved, do an internship. Finally, for advice, Melanie, anything to add addition to that? Yeah,
I was just going to say, whatever it is that you're doing your degree in, and whatever passion you have, you can adapt whatever you have learned to whatever job you want to do. And if at some point you change your mind or think that you might want to do something a bit different, then know that that's absolutely fine, and the things that you've learned can be adapted into so many different roles. And I think that's really important, to remember.
I think you make a super point there. I think one thing that comes to mind when you say that, in terms of that adapting and changing, and I think back to my first ever careers appointment when I was at school. I was like 14, and the appointment was made for me. It was in this dark, dusty corner of the library, and I went in, and there was a careers advisor there in sort of like a pleather jacket, like plasticky leather jacket, and a big ring binder full of printouts from the National Careers Service website. And the first thing he asked me was, Matt, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And the question just hung in the air for a moment, and it just felt so awkward. And I did what anyone would do in that situation, was sweated quite a lot, lied to my teeth, and got myself out of there. And it made me feel at that time that I had to make a decision about the one thing that I want to do in my life. And actually, since becoming a careers advisor, and I didn't always want to be a careers advisor, I totally fell into this line of work. I wanted to be an ice cream man, actually, when I was little, in case you're wondering. But totally fell into this line of work. And it's only now, when I reflect on the careers advice that we used to be provided years ago and to what it is now, the world's a different place now. And actually, new jobs are being created every single day, especially when, in terms of Casey's work as well, in terms of technology. New roles are being created all the time, and obviously in terms of Melanie's work with Netflix as well, new things are being created all of the time. And I'm sure in terms of developing threats as well, and threats to the environment in Luke's role as well, there's new things that need to be challenged. It's not a stagnant place, and that goes for careers as well. So if you are a student listening to this and thinking, I've no idea what I want to do in the future, I've got a bit of an idea, but I'm not quite sure, that's absolutely fine. This is an opportunity for you to explore. The reason, hopefully, why you're at talks like this is to be curious, to learn more about different roles that exist, and be really inspired about it. But also recognise there's not a right path and a wrong path, and that's a big question that comes from a lot of students is, Matt, what's the best decision, or what's the right decision? And there's not really a right or perfect decision. It's about making decisions that suit you and help you to feel really fulfilled in the work that you're doing and enjoy the work that you're doing as well. And one of my final questions, my penultimate question, is a question from a university perspective, actually, and reflecting on your degrees and your experience. Is there something or anything that you feel that we as a university should be building more into the curriculum to prepare students for careers in sustainability, climate change, conservation, or the environment? Anything that we could do differently? And if I can start with Casey first.
Oh God, that's the one question I didn't want to go first on. I would say, from our perspective, being able to keep on top of the literature is a real big challenge, and we find certainly now that the graduates we're getting coming through are much stronger than certainly, but back in the day when I was an undergrad. So I think that's really good, and I think. As well as, being able to use different digital tools as well. So, things like, whether or not it's Canva for creating some interesting materials or kind of, data visualizations packages, Google Data Studio or whatever, different types of software, I think, is making sure that people are proficient to be able to learn how to pick these skills up. So it's not necessarily kind of, this is how you use this piece of kit and get on and learn it, but actually, this is how you teach yourself to be able to do X, Y, and Z, watching YouTube videos and speaking to this guy and doing this and doing that. I think that's really what I think, that kind of resilience, and being able to adapt with change is the most important thing. And so it's the number one skill we look to recruit in our organisation for sure.
You make a really interesting point there, and I think as a university, that's interesting for us to maybe give a more diverse sort of support available for those digital skills. So, for example, at the moment, you can do your sort of Microsoft Office specialist qualifications for free through York St John as a student and things like that. But if there's a particular suite of tech or a suite of programs that you feel that we need to provide, do get in touch with digital training at YSJU.ac.uk and tell them about it. Give them a reason why we think we should do it. Is it needed in your sector? Is it valued in the job that you want to go into? And do let us know. And that's the only time we can bring about change is by mentioning them, really almost being a bit of a pest to those departments to say, we need this, please support us with this. But I thought
that was a nice pun there, Matt. But I thought you was doing a nice pun on pest. I'm disappointed it never landed.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Unintentional, happy coincidence was that pun. Luke, thinking about your experience, anything that we should be doing differently as a university?
I wouldn't have necessarily said differently. I don't know if you currently have sort of like an environmental newsletter that goes around weekly or monthly or so. Is that the case?
So I believe we've got the YSJ Ecological Society do put things out, but I don't know, and the fact that I don't know is a point of as a starting point to find out if that's something that we do offer. I mean, there is a group on Twitter that as a university we put information out, but is it a newsletter? No. Are there students here who would be willing to start a newsletter? Maybe. But no, I don't know is the short answer. But I think that's half it, isn't it? Knowing what we do offer and we have got to give to our students. And Melanie, final thing. Have we got anything that you think we're missing?
Well, I just think that it's really important that it's spoken about. People are talking about it. If students know what's going on locally, nationally, and internationally. You mentioned the Ecological Society, but there might be other students who aren't part of the Ecological Society who also might have a passion in that area. So I don't know, like Luke just mentioned, a newsletter. I don't know if there's any other way of getting around. Maybe they could have environmental get-togethers in the students' union or whatever. I just think people talking about it, that's when people's passions come out, and that's when knowledge as well.
Yeah, knowledge is shared. Yeah, and I think it's that sort of bringing, both in terms of Luke's point and Melanie's point, is bringing people together and sharing information, and that basically is environmental society, which doesn't necessarily exist. So again, thinking about that as a university, how can we better support those students to do that as well? And like I say, if you are listening to this event and you are interested, speak to us, speak to the SU, and let's get something that's set up if it's not done so already. My final question before we go over to the students' questions is, what does the future hold for each of you? If I can start with you, Melanie.
Well, I'm hopefully in a couple of years, once I finish this contract, I'm looking to move into assistant producing and then producing eventually. So that's hopefully my path, and this is something that I'm really passionate about, and being able to tell stories about the climate, about the planet and wildlife is what I want to do for good now. So I've found my niche. I think that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and let's keep in touch, and I'm really excited to follow your journey as well, and hope to see more of your documentaries on Netflix as well, which is really exciting. Casey, for you as well, what's the future hold for yourself and AgriSound?
Yeah, I mean, I think now's a really exciting time for us. We're just starting to scale up. Our mission is to get 1 million listening devices out across the planet, so we can really have data-driven insights in terms of where pollinators are suffering, and take this really big problem of pollinator decline and address it at a local level. So that's kind of where we're going, and we're hoping that over the next few years we'll be able to be in a position where we have those 1 million listening devices out, and then we can work with people like Luke and Melanie to use that information to make better policy decisions and tell the right stories and help people to really understand what they can do and address it at a hyper local level. So that and be a millionaire, that'd always be good as well. But that's a secondary benefit, hopefully. Yeah.
Maybe you three can keep in touch as well. Maybe there's a project in the future that you might be able to collab on. I don't know.
There we go. Sounds good.
And finally, Luke, what does the future hold for you?
That's a very good question. I'm torn down the middle, either between doing an entomology masters, or, like I said, the other side of me would love to come back to York and work in the Ipswich York DEFRA offices. Sorry, I've always said I wanted to go there, and I've been on a tour around the DEFRA building once with the Environment Agency, courtesy through my course, and I fell in love with it. And yeah, ever since then, that's always what I wanted to do, sort of work my way up within the Animal Plant Health Agency and sort of see where things go.
Did you know that career support's available for life, Luke? Because if you are torn between two decisions, we can maybe help with that. So and that goes for everybody as well. So in terms of students, graduates, alumni, your careers service is available for life as well. So, but it's really exciting to hear about all the projects that you've got in the future, all the sort of way you see yourself in the future as well. And let's help Casey get to that 1 million as well. So quick fire questions from our audience. Thank you, students, for submitting questions if you submitted them ahead of time. The first question is there anything that you would have done differently knowing what you know now? If we can start with Casey.
Short answer, probably not. Yeah, I think it's a culmination of experiences that lead you to where you are now. So I think there's been certainly things that I've regretted, but I suppose in the grand scheme of things, I think it's all worked out relatively well. So, touch wood.
Touch wood as well. I'll touch wood well for you. Anything you'll do differently?
Sorry, did you say me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get that way. What would I do differently? Maybe I think like I said, some companies that I have worked for, I didn't really align with their values, and I think that's really important, to be really true to yourself, and yeah, just really be true to yourself and follow your passions.
That's great guidance. I think it's great. Really great guidance. Follow your passions and follow your values. Question for you, Luke. What are your standout memories from your time at YSJ?
Oh, wow. I've got so many. I'd be on here for another couple of hours. But no, if there's anything I would change, I obviously, unfortunately, can't control COVID. I wish that never happened, but that's how it is. I think I touched upon it earlier. I think a couple of us did. Experience and just getting yourself out there. There was a part of me that really wished, whilst I was in York, I walked up to the DEFRA building, knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I'm Luke. This is where I'm at now. I'm at the university, York St John University. I'm really interested in sort of working within the environment in the future. Is can I get an internship here? Any sort of work experience, any shadowing, any volunteering? I really wish I'd have done that. Yeah.
Fantastic, really good point, really good point. Casey, what top tips do you have for when applying for a green job role such as your own? So from an employer startup perspective.
Yeah, I think two things. One, be genuinely interested in what we're actually doing. We get so many people who just want a job, and it is incredibly frustrating. They don't know anything about us, and they don't even seem to be particularly interested in bees, which is a real no-go. But also, the second thing is, we definitely look more than just a degree. So although it's great if you're coming to us with a 2-1 in environmental geography or whatever, we want more than that. So being able to tell a good story, tell us why you're here, what you want to achieve, where you want to go, be honest and transparent, and I think we certainly get the best out of the relationship. We want it to be mutually beneficial. So yeah, be open and honest, and tell us what you want to get out of it, and we're hoping we can make something work for you in that sense.
Use your storytelling skills and your narrative, as Melanie mentioned before, in terms of your application.
Absolutely.
Talk
Absolutely.
about and I can't support that enough in terms of your motivation to apply in. It's basic commercial awareness in terms of, do your research on the organisation, what do you love about them, why you're interested, why this role, why this company, and make Casey feel really good when he's reading your application. So again, it's use that in your life as well. You can't go far wrong. Well, yes, sorry, yes.
I'm just wondering if there's any questions from in the room.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Is there anybody in here that wanted to ask a question? Have you got any questions? No, you're all right. Yeah, go on.
That means we've been very thorough.
Yeah, go on, just a second.
Is there any way for us to contact the panellists about kind of their sectors or maybe volunteering opportunities with them?
Would you be open to be reached out to on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, definitely connect with us on LinkedIn if you want.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So all the panelist details are on the flyer that hopefully you should have got when you came in. So please do connect with them on LinkedIn. Great question. Thank you very much for that. So that's it. Reach the end of our Careers in Conversation Green Future event. You can just mute Suzanne. That'd be super, thank you. A huge thank you to our guests for joining us for this event, and to everyone behind the scenes in organising Green Week 2022. We've had Casey, we've had Melanie, and we've had Luke as part of our panel. A huge, I know you won't be able to hear it, but a huge sort of part. Thank you too for staff at York St John University, colleagues at the York St John Students' Union, and members of the Green Week Planning Group that made this event and all events this week happen. Keep an eye out for more events coming up this week, including tomorrow's Eco Business Startup panel with networking brunch, free food. Get yourselves there early. Bookable via Launchpad online. Follow at YSJ Ecol Justice and YSJ Social on Twitter for updates on sustainability. Don't forget to use your career service. I couldn't do this without getting a plug for us as well. So contact us via careers@yorksj.ac.uk. Career support is for life. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very
guys.
much. Take care, all.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.